The pitch is presented by Knowledge Success and supported by USAID. Welcome to a new season with new innovations and a new theme focused on knowledge management for youth-focused family planning and reproductive health programs. This is The Pitch, a continental competition looking for the next knowledge management innovation in family planning and reproductive health. From 50 applications from around the world, 6 semi-finalists based in Africa and Asia were chosen. They have just 3 minutes to deliver their pitches and convince the judges to fund the youth-focused game innovation. Last season, we saw innovations that went above and beyond to fill gaps in finding context-specific, timely, accessible family planning data that people at different levels could understand. Ultimately, 5 pitches were awarded a total of $250,000 to implement their ideas. The Blind Youth Association of Nepal began to break barriers for people with disabilities by developing national guidelines on disability-inclusive FPRH services. Strong Enough Girls Empowerment Initiative came up with a solution to the lack of localized indigenous FPRH knowledge in Nigeria and Niger through Indigenous, a podcast series where FP leaders from these countries share their FPRH experiences and insights. To push for more simplified data that healthcare workers and policymakers could understand, Save the Children Kenya created a real-time dashboard that analyzes key FP indicators by level, facility type, and region. And last but definitely not least, Project June Leader produced a magazine series for communities and decision makers in Malagasy on hot topics in adolescent sexual and reproductive health, ultimately connecting local knowledge and national level decision making in Madagascar. In Season 3, we're soaring to new heights. Young people are truly the architects behind progress in the adolescent and reproductive health sector. The time to focus on innovation, centering on youth, is now. Next season, we're looking for game-changing ideas in knowledge management for youth-focused FPRH programs. A total of 3 winners will be selected as our KM Champion Innovators. Now, let's meet our expert panel of judges who will be determining who is awarded up to $50,000 to implement their innovation. Dr. Sharmila Neogi is an adolescent health and gender advisor at USAID India. Joy Haley Mothali is the founder and executive director of Green Girls Platform Malawi. Dr. Newton Dogola is a medical doctor and a youth and gender officer at Copper Rose, Zambia. Dr. Tara Sullivan is the project director of Knowledge Success at the Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Programs, United States. Danish Tariq is an advisory committee member for the Next Gen RH Community of Practice and a program officer for the Chalan Development Association, Pakistan. The stakes are high. Who has what it takes to be one of the next knowledge management champion innovators? Hello, I'm your host, Pooja Kabahi, co-chair of the Next Gen RH Community of Practice, supported by Knowledge Success. We're so excited to see what's in store for all new season of The Pitch. Alright, let's kick off the competition with a pitch from our first semi-finalist.
আরে প্রথমে আমন্ত্রণ জানাই কিশোরী কিশোর তাদের জন্য আয়োজিত আজকের এই আসর 10 থেকে 19 বছর যেসব ছেলে কিশোর কিশোরী তারা বলছে পুঁথিকে জীবন গড়ার সঠিক সময় এই না কৈশোর কাল.
Let me start with a quick expression from an adolescent girl in a community where we work. She mentioned I didn't know much about SOUS-TITRES and also never thought that such information was important as the texts were mostly in English or informal Bangla dialect. SOUS information including pubertal changes, menstruation, weight dreams, family planning method, mental health and so many other issues including referrals to the service facilities in Bangla regional dialects is absent. And millions of young people are out of reach due to the language barrier that also makes the regular SPCC materials unpopular to them. My name is SM Shoykot and I work at SERAC Bangladesh, a non-profit organization working for and with young people to advance their rights and demands with innovative ideas and strategic communication like the one we are pitching today. The ballad song in the former verse is particularly a characteristic of the popular poetry song from the late Middle Ages until the 19th century. We plan to use ballad songs and other types of Bangla folk songs like Puti and Gambira to fill this knowledge gap and introduce locally contextualized SRH knowledge content that could have made huge difference in building the knowledge base of young people. We will produce 5 folk songs separately with the similar contents that will be screened with accompanying visuals. We have a very successful experience in this approach, and the base puthi which is being followed here was highly commended by the Minister of Health. In fact, these contents will directly contribute to the realizing of the National Adolescent Health Strategy, supporting the government to advance policy implementation through localizing the information. The prime factors why we are taking this initiative is it will generate more demand among adolescents to access relevant health and SRH services in their communities. The songs will also attract thousands of young people and their peers to enjoy and learn from the content since it is in their own dialect. Also, it is the proven case that localized phrases and messages are more memorable, so the contents developed would be the first of its kind to help them remember the information and to transform their mental model, adapting to necessary positive knowledge. Awareness in local language is always a timely demand, and it will facilitate young people to receive SRH knowledge in a language of their choice, as well as to impel stakeholders and policymakers to have a deep dive through these locally contextualized contents for rethinking about future programs and designing strategies. To make this change a reality, we're asking for a grant of $50,000 to develop this SRH educative entertainment song that will benefit millions of adolescents and youth living in 5 underprivileged regions in the country. For wider dissemination, these videos will also be hosted both on Sirak Bangladesh and Knowledge Success websites and other social media platforms. Thank you.
Excellent job. Let's hear some questions from our judges.
I mean, what I'm understanding is these songs are sung by adults when they are communicated to the community. So are you able to really address some of the sensitive issues which impact adolescents, or are they more towards, directing them towards the correct information, or are we able to talk about SRHR and choices? Just because I saw adults thinking it, that was a kind of a learning question. And the second part of the question is how you've also mentioned in your write-up that this will feed into the government's strategy. So just wanted to understand that also a little bit. And thank you. And once again, thanking you for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much for two critical nice questions. I was kind of prepared myself with those questions. The first one is it's sung by adults. Is actually the character who is playing here is a national celebrity who is very famous in this role and is a national face. So it's like a champion who anyone in Bangladesh know by name. Is a famous movie actor. So what happens when we create such a content and take it to the community will know the face and they get attracted to, because this person is on the movies, on the cinemas, and also big national events. So they already know them. That's one thing. And of course, there are the 5 other proposed innovations. It's not being sung by only adults, but also adolescents and young people will take part in preparing, designing, and in selecting the text as well. Second thing is all these contents are basically not prepared by the adult person or anyone singing. Is prepared with in consultation with the Ministry of Health. And this one, you have just seen partly. Ministry of Health was the direct contributor to the content, and each word was vetted by them. And the ones that we are proposing today, as going to the second question, how it is being with the Ministry of Health and the DGFP, is because as per the government regulation, any content that will be used in the country for health programs must be going through the IEM unit of the Director General Family Planning. So we anyway have to actually engage them, and all the texts that will be used are actually set by the government, and we just have to contextualize with the local dialect. That is our idea in this particular innovation.
I have a question, and I want to speak to the element of expansion. You are making 5 ballad songs for start. That's been a proposal. I wanted to find out, how do you plan on increasing, that's if there are more dialects, and how do you see this as something that the region can adopt, or even the world at large?
Thank you so much, Dr. Newton. The first thing is, if I understood your question clearly, it is like the dialects we will, actually this is like the country has a different language dialect, different regions in the country. So there are 5 major regions. For example, if we go to a northern part of the country, they use a dialect that the southern part do not use. Like there are a lot of words and phrases that are not understandable by the other region. So what we do, like we generally in Bangladesh, what we do is that we create like a generic content in formal Bangla dialect, and which is sometimes not like very popular among the adolescents. They are not actually. So when it becomes like a local dialect, blended content, it is like they feel this is their own. And the characters who will play in the videos or the visuals will be also selected from the champion is a national level because it was a national level content. But then the regional dialects, the champions or the person who will sing will be selected from the region. So like they are already accepted local persons, and the faces are common faces, like they're celebrities in the local areas.
A round of applause for a first semi-finalist. Will they be the next KM champion? You'll have to keep watching to find out. Let's hear from our next semi-finalist.
Did you know that only 40% of menstruators use hygienic menstrual products? Or that only 62% of Indian women are aware about the possible side effects associated with their contraceptive method? Hello, I'm Vinitha. I'm a 27-year-old queer woman and I work at the YP Foundation. As a feminist youth-led organization, we hear these narratives firsthand from adolescents and young people who often have to face violence and discrimination to access SRH services. For many of us, knowledge around SRH is either absent, or when it can be accessed, it is info that is Eurocentric and unrelatable, cis-heteronormative and exclusionary of diverse gender identities and sexualities, and prevention-based rather than pleasure-affirmative. Enter Kaleidoscope, a free gender-transformative chatbot that collates accurate and contextual resources, tools, and information, and makes them accessible 24/7 for diverse young Indians, including queer and trans youth. Currently envisioned in English and Hindi and with a read out loud feature, Kaleidoscope is a WhatsApp-based service that will automatically respond to queries on SRHR in real time. India has the largest number of WhatsApp users in the world, with over 487 million users spending an average 21 hours per month on the platform. The chatbot will have a menu card for these users where they can ask questions on various SRHR topics, explore tools for advocacy in different settings, ask how to locate service providers, and access helpline numbers. 2 additional options will include providing feedback and asking more to ensure repeated and regular usage of the chatbot. Before closing the conversation, the chatbot will prompt users to share their age, gender, and ability to ensure a robust user database and tailor the content based on the audience. A low-cost but high-impact KM innovation, Kaleidoscope has the ability to directly impact the life of anyone aged 13 plus who has access to the internet. In a post-pandemic world, Kaleidoscope not only fills the information gap when it comes to SRHR, but also provides a safe and confidential space for young people to explore their choices in a non-judgmental setting on an encrypted platform. The chatbot will rely on user initiation, and data will not be driven towards any third-party collaborations or unsolicited advertisements or notifications. This KM innovation will be developed in collaboration with tech experts and young people, with an estimated 70% of the cost spent on the development of the platform, and the rest for rigorous dissemination towards young people. We will also push for the phone number to be embedded in portals including Swayam, a tech-based platform by the Government of India on education, as well as other existing apps on health, sports, social welfare, and more. Using a positive youth development approach, young people will be involved in the designing, pre-testing, and post-outreach evaluation to ensure that the information and method of communicating is youth-affirmative. Analysis of the trends in the chatbot will also help inform further actions for the FP and RH space in India by identifying young people's concerns. Post the project's completion, the chatbot will be sustained by the YP Foundation and gradually be shared with educational institutes, government bodies, and NGOs at minimum membership cost using the franchise business model. Imagine the next time you want to access information that advances your SRH well-being. You no longer have to rely on movies or misinformation. You have Kaleidoscope to guide you with fact-check, stigma-free information. Let's make that happen.
Great pitch. Now, time for the Q&A with our judges. my question is on how you plan to make the chatbot flexible or something that young people can easily access and be trusted to actually keep the information, and also to trust it to talk about maybe intimate things that they're not comfortable talking to with other people. And what challenges do you, maybe if you have any challenges that you've already foreseen, what are they, and do you have any measures of addressing them or any plans of addressing them? Thank you.
So we definitely think that WhatsApp is the best platform to use in this scenario because, as we also mentioned in our presentation, it has a very wide user database in India especially, and people spend a lot of time using WhatsApp. It's also a platform that they're very familiar with, so it's not something new that they have to take up. It's not something that requires extra learning time, which is why we think that it's a good platform for this chatbot service. And we think young people are very keen to use the internet these days to access information on sexual and reproductive health and services. We've seen that even when you look at social media platforms, there's an increase in content about sexuality or sexual or reproductive rights. And so we think that it's definitely a platform that people will be excited in using, and because it's something that's easy and already accessible on their phone and doesn't require you to download a new app or learn how to operate a new app, we think that this is going to add to the number of people that use it. In terms of challenges, of course, we can imagine that, sometimes even when you have information available online, it might not always be as comprehensive or as relatable as you would want it to be. Sometimes these conversations are easier had when you're in person, or these conversations are easier to navigate when you're having them as conversations rather than just, like a Q&A format. And so for that, we do actually have some plans. So it's not just an information-based service. We do envision this chatbot as a platform that will provide young people with the tools to be able to actually advocate for their own SRHR needs in their communities, with their schools, with their parents. And so we want to broaden the scope of the chatbot, and it's not just where you ask a question and it gives you information on that, because that's something that you can also do on other platforms on the internet. But we really see this chatbot as a more holistic platform that can provide young people with a wide variety of not only information, but also tools that they can use to access greater SRHR services in their context.
When it comes to the sustainability component of it, post-funding, how do you intend to continue collecting information and just progressing and advancing with the platform that you're going to create? And then also I wanted to ask, with regards to the information you're going to collect, which is valuable information with regards to the sexual behavior of adolescents and young people, do you have a strategy with which you can use to feed into or to inform policymakers to perhaps structure these sentences to adolescents' needs? Or the information will end with you when you get it through the platform?
Thank you for the question. We do have quite a few plans when it comes to the sustainability of this project. So at YP, firstly, we have a core communications team that, does take on projects and is not dependent on specific projects. But in addition to that, we also plan to embed funds for this project within our existing programs and programmatic budgets, to ensure that it continues to be operational and that it can continue to reach the young people that it needs to. And we also see, again, we see this as a holistic platform. So we want to ensure that people are using this in tandem with other resources. So even when we go talk to people on the field, when we go talk to them on ground, we see this chatbot as something that will sort of supplement the work that we're doing there. So it is something that we are interested in sustaining in a long term. And that's not something that's restricted to just this project. We see this as sort of the kickoff point and something that will enable us to set these systems in place, set these structures in place, but something that we definitely want to continue long term because we think that it's a very valuable resource to have for young people. And for your second question, in terms of how we plan to use this information, so YP has a long-standing history of working with the government of India. We have partnerships with different state governments as well as the national government. And we've also, so for example, we're the FP 2030 India Youth Focal Point. We were the only youth voices at the National Family Planning Summit that happened last year. And we also have advised the government on developing the RKSK guidelines, which are basically the cornerstone of adolescent health in the Indian context. And currently, we're also the Secretariat for the Advocating for Reproductive Choices Coalition, which is a coalition of 150 organizations across India. We do have a long history of working on these issues with the government and helping to use this information to impact policy changes in the laws. Yeah.
Outstanding pitch. Will it be enough to convince our judges? Let's hear from our next semi-finalist.
Peace, greetings. This is Judge Agi, a human rights activist and director of Activism Academy, whose vision is promoting arts for awareness raising, strengthening and transforming the environment and health systems, and meaningful youth engagement. We have a youth-led and gender-equitable approach that integrates young people of all diversities at all stages. Activism Academy is proposing an innovative project that will change the way family planning, reproductive health programs share knowledge for adolescents and youth affected by floods in Pakistan. Pakistan was hit by severe floods in June 2022, affecting 33 million people with 8 million displaced, facing a health crisis and damaging 10% of healthcare facilities. Accessing reproductive health family planning information is already stigmatized and taboo in Pakistan, particularly for youth, and due to the flood, they are facing more challenges accessing reproductive health services and information. UNFPA says 1.6 million girls and women of reproductive age, including nearly 130,000 pregnant women, need immediate second reproductive health services in flood-affected areas. Dear judges, last year, while I visited flood-affected areas for relief activities, I met a young lady of 26, very slim and feeble, carrying one baby in arms with one kid standing nearby and pregnant with another. Upon asking, I was told it was her 10th pregnancy, and upon inquiring, I got to know that there were no healthcare services available around. Neither she nor her husband were aware of their reproductive health, contraceptive methods, and child-spacing options. Young girls and women were also facing difficulties in accessing menstrual necessity. Some even were using tree leaves during their periods. The flood emergency has increased these challenges and needs of young people. Hence, we decided on an urgent action plan with 3 phases. Number 1. Firstly, we will be establishing a first-ever young alliance of knowledge champions consisting of diverse 30 young SOUS-TITRES activists working effectively for flood reliefs in 15 flood-affected districts across Pakistan will be selected through an online call for application. Secondly, the knowledge champions will voluntarily develop appealing and informative resources containing their real stories about the challenges they faced and how they coped with them, including 3 comic books, 2 animated videos, and 1 interactive game around 5 themes: menstrual hygiene, youth-friendly health services, mental health, gender-based violence, and sexually transmitted infections in Urdu language. Thirdly, the knowledge champions will conduct 60 storytelling sessions using the stories from comic books, animated videos, and the interactive game with young people aged 15 to 30 living in these flood-affected areas. The resource materials and storytelling sessions will increase knowledge about health and services to encourage young people to take well-informed decisions and connect them to the resources unique to their SRHR needs, with an aim to reduce the trauma of flood affectees through these creative resources. As scaling and sustainability are concerned, we aim to develop the same resources in English and 2 regional languages. The National Youth Alliance will engage more leaders from other areas of Pakistan to disseminate the resources. We would partner with government, civil society, and private sector to make the resources available at education institutes to be used as a powerful resource to deliver knowledge and to be utilized by other stakeholders for advocacy efforts beyond the project. Dear judges, are you ready to not just fund a project, but to transform the lives of young people affected by flood in Pakistan?
Great job. Now, let's go to the Q&A.
Thank you for your presentation and for your innovative idea, Jaya. My question just relates to the knowledge management champions that you spoke of. Can you talk about how you're going to identify them? And then also, can you talk about how they'll be compensated for their work and budgeted as part of this intervention? Thank you.
So we plan to identify these knowledge champions through an online call for application where they will be filling that online call for application, will be taking their interview, and then we will be selecting around 30 of these who will be from 15 to 30 years of age. And most importantly, these are those young SRHR activists who have already been working in flood-affected areas for flood relief activities. So they are the ones who can easily identify, they have access to those areas, they understand the society, they understand the challenges, and they're also sensitive towards the SRHR needs. In the 3rd phase, we will be conducting 60 storytelling sessions, and these knowledge champions will be conducting those storytelling sessions, and there is a stipend given to them in the budget. So they would be given those stipend for their activities over there, and it's only for those
sessions, not for the workshop, because there is a workshop where we will be building the capacity, we would be developing the content through their inputs and their live story.
My question is, which areas do you think you will be able to cover if, God forbid, flood hits again? And what will be your plan if, thankfully, flood doesn't come? And second question is, do you think this project is similar to any? If it is, and if it is not, how is it different from other alliances and youth groups working in?
Danish, we have selected 15 districts for this particular purpose, and they would be from 2 provinces of Pakistan, Punjab and Sindh. And these young leaders will also be from these districts and will be distributed across. Danish, since we have already been working around flood relief and the sexual and reproductive health rights of young girls and women, and we had been very conscious around it, we have already seen into the forecast of disaster management and the government as well, and we have seen that in the upcoming years now the situations are good, and for this particular year and also now since we are working around rehabilitation, so we are sure that no such situation would be there as per the weather forecast.
Spectacular point. But were our judges impressed? We'll know very soon. Let's hear from our next semi-finalist.
At the age of 16, the only way known to me and my friends as a way to prevent pregnancy if one has unprotected sex was that you should drink lime soda and salt. Unfortunately, such myths remain a reality for many girls in Nigeria today. With this work, youth volunteers will be champions, placing the power of accurate information into the hands of other young people to dispel similar myths. Hello, my name is Toyin Chukwudozie. I'm the Executive Director of Education at Vaccine, a youth-focused organization in Nigeria with youth making 50% of our staff that works in partnership with young people to advance their health and rights, especially using technology. According to the Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey, 19% of girls aged 15 to 19 have begun childbearing. That's 1 in 5 girls. That has huge implications for girls, especially as they are unable to reach their full potential. To improve reproductive health outcomes for young people, they need access to family planning information and services, as well as HIV and STI prevention. Program managers and other stakeholders in the family planning and reproductive health space also need evidence-based approaches to address the issues that young people face, especially the risk-taking behaviors that exist among young people. This is why we developed Frisky, a sexual risk assessment mobile app designed to empower young people to seek accurate information to enable them make informed decisions about their reproductive health. Frisky enables young people to assess their sexual health risks when they download for free, register and answer a series of questions including gender, history and type of sexual activities, type of protection used amongst others. The app uses this algorithm to calculate their risk, shares the results, and provides tailored information based on the risk level of further action. The data from this app is only accessible to our tech support and program manager, who have all signed our safeguarding policy. From the conceptualization to rollout, young people have driven this process, especially as an innovation to address gaps identified in other tech-based programs. To actualize this project, Education at a Vaccine is asking for $48,000. The funds from pitch will be used to create awareness among more youth, especially on university campuses, support youth volunteers to share this information, and encourage other young people to take the sexual risk assessments on the app, and then analyze and share this data with stakeholders. Frisky will always be on the Google Play Store and will be available even after this project is ended. The data from Frisky will continuously be collected and shared with stakeholders in decision-making spaces where we engage. We envision that Frisky as an ecosystem would reach a level where it can run independently without aggressive intervention. Your investments in Frisky will make young people risk-free.
Let's hear it. For our 4th semi-finalist, judges, do you have any questions?
My question is on the 20 peer mobilizers that you plan to engage. Do you have a criteria for choosing them, or will it just be random users? And why are you only choosing 2 states? You already mentioned that Nigeria is a big country. Why only 2 states? And what was the criteria for choosing the 2 states?
So, yes, we have a criteria for selecting the mobilizers. First of all, they have to be young people between the ages of 15 to 24 because that's the age that this app is targeting. And because it's a peer mobilization, it has to be people who reach their own peers. We also know that sometimes it's more difficult to reach young women than men when it comes to some of this intervention. So we are also thinking of a 60-40 ratio to have more 60% female and 40% male peer mobilizers. And they also have to be people who have some level of influence in their environment or in their community. So they have a constituency of some sort that they know they are respected or they are known at least. And they also might have done some form of youth engagement, not just in our space, but even in their schools at some point. So we'd put out a call through our networks, because we worked extensively with young people, to see how we can get people who would be interested in volunteering for this. They will be supported with stipends. We hope that it's going to be beyond just the engagement for their peers, that they also understand why this is important and why this is necessary. And the second question you asked was around why 2 states. So Nigeria has 36 states and the FCT. To be very honest, the amount of funds we have to do any interventions in Nigeria would rarely, cover the entire 36 states, because there's many millions of youth in Nigeria. So we want to start this with, selecting 2 different regions that can show like a north and south kind of thing, or 2 different geopolitical zones. And it's closest to us in terms of, where our offices are and where we have staff. That's also one of the reasons that we have selected those states. It also has some of the highest indices for issues with reproductive health and access to information for young people.
I really appreciate the innovation of the Frisky app. And one of the things that I'd like you to help me to understand is how this innovation, the Frisky app is already established. So what would be the deliverables for this innovation? As I'm understanding your delivery of the innovation, it's promotion. Can you just expand a little bit more about what your deliverables will be that you'll use the 48,000 for? Thank you.
Frisky is an app, like we explained, that's collecting information on risk assessments, sexual risk assessment of young people, for young people. So what we're going to be doing with the funds is that we need to add some more questions to the risk assessment that particularly gets more information about their risk the risks around family planning and reproductive health. We also want to get a bit of peer mobilizers to get more young people to download the app and take the risk assessments. And we then want to bring the information together and then piece it together in a way that we can explain these barriers or these risks to program managers, to government stakeholders, so that they can see from the regions where we're collecting this information what young people are saying are either the barriers to access to services for them, or why they haven't used a modern method, or why they engage in certain risk behaviors, so that this can then be targeted through our different interventions and programs. So that's what we'll be using the funds from the pitch for.
Thank you, judges. Soon we'll find out who our next KM champion innovators are. I can't wait. Let's hear from our next semi-finalist.
Every year, 21 million adolescents become pregnant. Youth HIV infections are still rising, and 1 in 4 young people experience sexual violence. Most of these youth live in countries with poor health services, and the situation has worsened since COVID-19. It's time to change that. Family planning services are low quality and often not youth-friendly. Policies sit on shelves without the budget or political motivation to move them forward. Evidence shows that youth can change this if they're given safe spaces to engage duty barriers. But lacking data, credibility, and silo projects leaves many gaps. VSO is working in Kenya to build the capacity of the National Youth Network, driven by empowered, tech-savvy agents of change. The Data for Youth Accountability Hub is a user-friendly tool for youth organisations to deliver social accountability using evidence, data, policies and training.
We use an intersectional scorecard approach which champions gender equality and inclusion of marginalised groups such as girls, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, sex workers, youth in prisons and refugees, giving them a platform and a voice. The Hub is created on an open access platform using Power BI, which facilitates integration into a range of different web platforms. It has 3 components, 2 of which already exist. Firstly, we have a tool that enables youth to map out issues that concern them to the national and local policy frameworks. Secondly, we have an Android app to collect data and photos from the clinics. Thirdly, what we still need to build is the analytical tools to compare data across country or over time to see the patterns and see the issues from an intersectional and vulnerability lens. The budget will help us to catalogue the policy frameworks on youth rights and build out the automated analysis tools and report generation. It will also support youth to collect data from 3 counties in Kenya and to train them to test and use the Hub effectively and conduct meetings with duty bearers using the reports. The impact we expect to see at a regional or global level is the improvement on data availability on youth services and to nurture learning exchange by youth-led social accountability projects. Nationally, youth services should become more responsive to the voices of youth, and locally we hope to see improved access, quality and budget allocation for youth sexual health services. We'll measure success by the number of Hub users and the amount of or number of data-informed action plans and learning stored on the dashboard, and the growth of the data over time. In terms of sustainability, our aim is to expand the Hub across Kenya's youth network, training champions to support us to scale nationally and to other knowledge success partners and communities. In the long run, we hope to cover all of VSO's youth-led social accountability programs in Africa. With your help, we can bring this state-of-the-art knowledge management to a transformative youth-led advocacy approach. Our semi-finalists are really shaking things up. Time for Q&A with our judges. So, Polly Walker is out sick and was not able to join us for the Q&A portion, but we are happy to have Robert Warrington on the line with us along with Gilbert Murungu.
What kind of a reach do you envisage using all these different methods? And the second thing is, how do you plan to sustain this beyond the life of the project?
We already have work that is ongoing where youth are using a similar sort of mechanism. It is, of course, not fully developed. Part of the reason we are looking at this funding is to develop it and advance it further. So we could say that the reach currently is in 3 counties. That's in Kenya. And that's basically where we are doing our scorecard activities. Social accountability activities, collecting data that we are using in terms of influence policies and processes in government. So we are hoping that with additional funding, it should be possible to go beyond the 3 counties. And this means more youth that would be involved in terms of collection of data and also using data. And then the reach would also be increased because we will be able to gather a lot more data that can influence more policies, and that of course would reach more sorts of beneficiaries of those sorts of policies. Sustaining the mechanism, if I may call it so, beyond the intervention. As I've said, this intervention is not, or rather, this mechanism is not totally, like coming from the ground in the sense of the first time that we are funding it. So we've been having some bit of work that has been going on. So there's a bit of work that has already gone into it, and therefore this is going to expand it. And then we are hoping that it will be part of what we'll be using as VSO and our partners. So in our usual problematic work, we are going to integrate it within the work that we are doing. And that's how it will be sustained beyond the current funding.
My question is on the innovation. Have you tested it before, or this is the first time? And if you have, what were the successes and what were the challenges?
Yeah, so Joy, again, I think there's a kind of couple of levels we can answer that question on. At the sort of foundational community engagement level, we're using community scorecards, which probably you've come across that. It's kind of actually developed in Malawi 20 years ago, I think, wasn't it? So well evaluated, tried and tested methodology for community engagement. Lots of research that kind of shows the impact and sustainability beyond that. So that's very well tested both by BSO and others. The digital platform, similarly, we've kind of been working on this together with VSO in a number of countries, sort of slowly testing pieces of this. I think we very much kind of see this as a sort of a slow motion innovation where we test things, we learn lessons, and then we can gradually improve it. And I think we're sort of getting closer and closer to the next stages in that. And I think where we hope to get to is that it can really become much more youth-led. I think up to now, as you may be aware, community scorecards require a lot of external facilitation. I think what we're starting to see that's really exciting is kind of young people actually taking these tools and using them independently, and that's where the real sustainability comes. But we can't be sure yet exactly how that's going to evolve.
Who will the next skiing champions be? Only one pitch remains.
Good afternoon. My name is Rekik Katamut, and I'm an advocacy officer at Talent Youth Association. TAYA is a youth-led and youth-focused organization with decades of experience in SRH, family planning, meaningful youth participation, and advocacy. Ethiopia has the second largest youth population in Africa, with 1/3 of the population being adolescents and youth. There are more barriers to access contraceptives, with an unmet need of 23.4%. And this challenge is also reflected in the FP 2030 commitment of the Ethiopian Ministry of Health has made. Among the many contributing factors for this challenge, the main one is the decreasing of allocation of funds for family planning. This is due to the lack of actionable data, disaggregated data, as well as easy to understand data. And towards this, the House of People's Representatives and the parliamentarians are really targeted as key stakeholders, although they are the ones approving annual budgets and allocating funds. To address this, we will develop 2 fact sheets, one on AY research, another one on family planning, using an updated data from Guttmacher Institute and the Ministry of Health reports. This will be organized in Amharic. In addition to that, we will organize a high-level discussion forum with youth representatives, taking inclusivity into consideration. This platform will be a knowledge exchange event between youth representatives and AY research professionals. Another objective for this forum is to demonstrate the importance of having regular discussions between young people, program implementers, and decision makers. This is with the intention of establishing a quarterly roundtable discussion to share data, research, and learning from TAYA's program implementation. The AY research technical working group at the Ministry of Health, which we are a member of, could ensure the sustainability of this program after the funding ends by incorporating it into their annual plan. Working with the parliamentarians is one entry point. This is to attain the objective of increasing finances for AY research programs. This will be by supporting the Ethiopian commitment on the FP 2030 by emphasizing on the noticeable financing gap of 60% and working on a crafted evidence-based advocacy. So, judges, are you ready to help us create a better future for the Ethiopian youth by advocating for an increased investment? Thank you.
Really impressive pitch. Time for a final Q&A segment. Judges, over to you.
First of all, brilliant presentation. My question is that how many fact sheets and how many regular discussions do you plan to do to utilize this much bigger funding?
Thank you for that question. We plan to publish 2 fact sheets, one on AYSRH, adolescent sexual and reproductive health, and one on family planning. Both will be in Amharic. And the data would be updated data from the Guttmacher Institute and the Ministry of Health reports. And regarding the discussions, we plan to have regular roundtable discussions on a quarterly basis with the parliamentarians, decision makers, SRH practitioners, young people, to ensure inclusivity. So that would be like 4 times a year.
Ricket, you have mentioned that 4 per year. So as far as I know, this project will be implemented in 5 months. So how do you seek to implement them in the 5 months?
The objective of the roundtable discussion is going to be a knowledge sharing platform. So the idea is, since parliamentarians and decision makers as well as young people don't have really a common platform where they get together and display researches and talk about studies, challenges on the grassroots level, we plan to have a regular meeting with these professionals. And then to ensure the sustainability, the AYSRH technical working team will be part of the discussion, and we plan to have it incorporated in their annual plan.
My question goes to Danish. Past Danish question, I'm actually more interested in how you plan on sustaining the quarterly meetings past the funding period. And then I would also want to find out, from the roundtable discussions that you intend to have every quarter, how do you intend to get that information that you group from there down to the adolescents and the youth themselves and the communities?
Regarding the discussion, so we plan to have young people, youth volunteers, youth advocates that are within our networks and as well as like out of our networks, so that they can create these platforms themselves, shed a light on the issues and barriers of AYSRH as well as family planning, to practitioners and parliamentarians. So the key stakeholders are going to be the parliamentarians, since they're rarely targeted with regards to these interventions. So any data, any research, any best practice that has been implemented will be taken by the young people themselves, so that they can take it into their relative areas of implementation in order to have it incorporated in their areas. When they advocate for bigger funding, when they advocate for more commodities regarding contraceptives, this will help them guide their works by being evidence-based. With regards to the sustainability, the technical working team will be the biggest player, since it's an existing entity and we're a member of that. Taya is a member of the technical working team at the Ministry of Health. So we plan to have them as a member of the roundtable discussion. And once this funding ends, they will incorporate it in their annual plan, since we're part of the task force, the technical working team. There are roundtable discussions, and the knowledge sharing platform will sustain.
Whoa, what a talented group. Thank you to all of the semi-finalists for sharing such creative and groundbreaking KM innovations. For Youth Focus FPRH program, any of these ideas would help to improve FPRH programming. That leaves us with just one question remaining. Which Youth Focus KM innovators should be funded? I'd like to ask our esteemed judge, Tara Sullivan, to share with us what the panel of judges has decided. Who are the final KM champion innovators?
I'm pleased to announce the 3 Knowledge Management Champion Innovators for the Pitch Season 3. The judges believe these innovations meet the criteria we're looking for and have the potential for significant impact in the communities they serve. Our first KM Champion Innovator is YP Foundation India for their innovation of Kaleidoscope, a free gender transformative chatbot. We love this idea because it is innovative, feasible, strategic, and engages with the government, which will ensure sustainability. It has a high potential impact to improve the lives of youth using WhatsApp platforms that they are familiar with. It can be scaled and replicated not only in India, but worldwide.
The ideal future is that we would be able to reach out to more people who might not be able to access these languages. So just expanding the scope of this chatbot to be able to communicate with people in different languages, and also to make sure that we are able to access resources in different languages, because a lot of the time information around SRHR exists primarily in English, or in India at most then it would exist in Hindi. But to make sure that we are able to get this information to people who need it in contexts or other languages that might not be able to access those sort of dominant spaces would be the ideal next step.
The second KM Champion Innovator we have selected is VSO Kenya, Further Innovation Data for Youth Accountability Hub. This innovation appealed to us because they have sound plans for developing their innovation, including plans for sustainability and scale-up. It takes a comprehensive standpoint of the needs of young people, advocating for family planning and reproductive health services using social accountability.
If our project is selected by the judges, the impact will be the growth of youth-led organisations across the East Africa region with evidence-led advocacy.
The impact will be additional youth-led data and youth-led evidence that will help in terms of informing policy influencing amongst them.
The third and final Knowledge Management Champion Innovator for this season is Sarak Bangladesh for their contextualized SRHR folk songs in Bangla innovation. We chose this innovation because it is an engaging approach, meets a need, is innovative, will get the attention of young people through music in local languages, has a high potential for impact, and is contextually relevant.
I think this would be really a great opportunity that if it is selected, it becomes a resource not for Sarak, it will become a resource for the community, for the practitioners, and our community campaign workers who work to support adolescents in the community.
Congratulations to our Kenyan Champion Innovators. Once again, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all the semi-finalists for the effort they put into developing the pitches and for the dedication to KM and FBRH. All of the innovations shared today can be found on the Knowledge Success website at knowledgesuccess.org. Judges, thank you for a thoughtful deliberation and time today. We know we didn't ask you to make an easy decision. Finally, a huge thanks to our listeners for your continued dedication to family planning and reproductive health. Together, we are making a difference. The pitch is presented by Knowledge Success and supported by USAID.